Catechism on the Constitution of the United States. Question 167 out of 333, Arthur J. Stansbury. Published the year 1868, same year that Webster's Dictionary came out. A little closer to what an understanding of what that document means. It's a brief of common law government. Without our common law, it's not understandable. Its phrases and words are couched in the language of our common law. That's a quote from Chief Justice Taft of the U.S. Supreme Court. Question 167. Why is it, question 167, why is it that no citizen of the United States is allowed to receive, that office holders of the United States are not allowed to receive titles of nobility from the government, the prince, the king, the emperor, the empress, blah, 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 of any other country? Why? Answer: to guard against any foreign prince getting influence over these who are in power among us. By bribes of any kind, a title would be a better bribe to some men than money. In fact, it is. You read the history of the old country from which our country derives. The old country from which our country derives. What is it? It's Britain, specifically England. When you read the history, I haven't read all of it, but I've made it a point to read a lot because it interests me to know what happened before that put us here in America where we are. Oh, it's important to know the trajectory we were put on. But you read the history of England and Scotland, and what you see is a history of the crowns of those countries, or both countries, or one, bribing men, governments, kings, queens, bribing men with titles of nobility to get what the government wants. That's what it is. And with the title of nobility in the old country comes what? The source of wealth, land, titles. The title comes with the land. You get the profits off the land. The nobility in England still controls a lot of land, and all the profits and rents off of that land go to who? Them. And who is the largest landholder in England, in Britain, if not the world? The highest holder of a title of nobility. Well, who would that be? The crown of the country. Oh, Prince Charlie. Prince Charlie. I've read that he's the largest landholder in the world. I was in Canada one time. I had a buddy from Michigan. He's a Michigander. And he just loved Michigan, and he wanted a bunch of us boys to go up and go fishing with him, where he used to go fishing when he's a boy. A lot of fish in Michigan, like Minnesota. A lot of fish in Canada, too. Oh, yeah. Big edible fish. Well, I used to go to a place up just south of Hudson Bay someplace. I don't know where it was exactly. I had an idea. It was on the Canadian Shields, where there are probably hundreds of thousands of lakes. We drove as far as we could, crossed the border to International Falls, Minnesota. A big paper mill there called International Paper Punk Company. Got a big mill there. We crossed and we drove and drove and drove and drove and stayed a night and drove some more. Finally, we drove so far the road ended, way up toward Hudson Bay. And then we parked our vehicles and got on a boat on a lake, and we rode and rode and rode on that boat through the rain. I remember it was raining. We were crowded up under this awning. We got up there, up there somewhere, and we met the founder and the owner of Vermeer Farm Equipment Company. He was at that lake where we were staying, him and his son. His son was a missionary in Africa, I remember. And Vermeer, he's from Iowa, you know, he's Dutch. Vermeer, Dutch. He invented a little gadget that would tie a knot on the baling wire on those round bales, and that's what made those round bales popular. And he had the gadget and the machine that would do it, and he started selling it. He's a farmer. Thing got bigger and bigger, like John Deere and McCormick, and pretty soon he's got this big equipment company that he's probably gone. I hear his daughter runs it now or something. But I met him up there, and Keith, my buddy at that time, took us up there, wanted to see where he went fishing. Boy, were the fish thick. I mean, all you had to do was drop your line in the water. Then you clean the fish, throw the guts and the heads out there, and the bald eagles would congregate like blowflies. I saw the raw wilderness. We got raw wilderness down here in the States, but not like they do up in Canada. And natural resources, don't mention it. No limit to what's up there on the Canadian Shield. Well, I was on this lake and I had a boat. It had a little motor on it, and I went for an exploration trip around the lake, and I found a place where the lake, see those lakes up there, all they are is fat pools and untold numbers of rivers. All that water's moving all the time, but these fat pools are lakes. And I found the place where the outlet was on that massive lake. I rode quite a while. Kind of a stupid thing to do by myself, by the way. Exceedingly stupid, I might add. But I was younger then, and didn't have the wisdom I have now. Well, I couldn't get my boat over because up on the Canadian Shield where there's water running over, it runs over solid granite. There's not much topsoil, in a lot of places it's just granite. So I stopped my boat along the side, got off. I'm in the wilderness. I mean the howling wilderness. I walked up on shore, thought I'd go back in the brush a little bit and see what it was like out there. Skeeters were on me like white on rice, like ugly on an ape. I couldn't even see the back of my hand for the skeeters. They were trying to suck me dry, and I assumed they'd leave me for dead. I don't know. I didn't stay long for that reason. Couldn't keep them off of my face. But I was up there long enough to see a large sign out in the middle of the howling wilderness, driven in there so it would stay, big metal sign. And it said, "This land belongs to the crown of England," or Britain, or whatever it said, the crown. It was, at that time, Queen Lizzie. I thought, good gravy. Over here in the New World in North America, she owns land that nobody even knows about. How rich is that woman? Well, she's pretty rich. Why? Because she inherited a title of nobility. And remember, titles of nobility are inherited. If they're not inherited, you can call them a title of nobility, but that's not what they are. The legislature of Kentucky formed a title of what they call a noble title called Kentucky Colonel. Most famous Kentucky Colonel today is Colonel Sanders, of course. He's Kentucky Colonel by act of the state legislature and bestowing of the governor of Kentucky. Yep. But it's not a title of nobility because it's not inheritable. It's not a matter of blood. You don't get it by blood. You get it by bestowal. It lasts as long as you, and that's it. Now, if you'll notice, the people that accuse lawyers in America of having titles of nobility because sometimes somebody will put Esquire after their names. If you'll notice, they make a point. A lot of them make a point that lawyers in America have sworn an oath to the Queen of England, or now the King, the Crown of Britain. It's not true, but they say that. Why do they say that? I'll tell you why they say that. Because they know they've got to connect that title of a nobility to a foreign country to make it unconstitutional. You see, these titles of nobility are not from any other country. That's the main thing here. So they want to say, oh, all the lawyers in America took an oath to the Crown of England and they're called esquires, therefore we must shoot them or jail them or something. I see how people feel that way. Did you know that 90%? Oh, probably. I don't know what the exact figures are. I had a couple of doctors tell me this once. 90% of all the income of doctors in America comes from the federal and state governments. I mean, we got government health care here. It's not private. It's private in one way, but in another way it isn't, and they're controlled by the general government, Medicare, Medicaid, all that baloney. Yeah, 90% of their income comes from that. Do you think they're controlled by the government? How much of a lawyer's income comes from the government? Well, if you're not employed directly by the government, none. Lawyers have the option of doing what they want and staying poor. And not a lot of them do, by the way. I just saw a thing yesterday, Miss Francine sent to me. It said the Trump administration has severed its relationship with the American Bar Association. Of course, people say, well, the American Bar Association is connected to the Queen of England and all lawyers are members of the bar and blah, blah, blah. No, all lawyers aren't members of the bar. I've been practicing law for a few decades and I've never joined a bar association, ever. So that's not true. And neither is it true that lawyers in America are required to take an oath to Queen of England. I'll tell you what to take an oath to. I found out, I got on the inside and I took the oath. I'll spill the beans right here in case you're wondering. I took an oath. I remember what I said. I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States against enemies foreign and domestic. I'd taken that oath 6 other times. 1, 2, 4 times as a military man. 4, I think it was 4. 1 time as state's attorney. I took the oath. And I took it also as an officer of the judicial branch called a lawyer, licensed to practice before the court. All I can give you, I can't give you any more than what other men can give you. But I can give you my personal testimony that is hogwash about lawyers being members or the titles in America having titles of nobility. I'll give you my personal testimony. I've never seen evidence of it, and I've never heard any lawyer who's licensed to practice law in America ever say that they were subject under a title of nobility to a foreign prince or government or empress or whatever. That's my conclusion, my studied conclusion, my experience conclusion that patriots ought to dump the idea. It's a distraction intended by the evil one himself to get you away from what's important and do something worthwhile. And the people that are saying that are hoping they can make money, and it helps them vent because they hate lawyers. I don't particularly like them either. But that's a distraction that will just sap your time. That's all you got in this life, really, is time. All right, 167. Why is it? Well, to guard against a foreign prince or government getting influence over those who are in power among us. 168. When the states entered into an agreement by which they set up the general government, notice he uses the word general government. He does not say federal government, because back then in 1828, that was the way they described and the moniker they gave to what folk call the government is sitting in Washington, D.C., and we ought to call it that now. There's nothing federal about it. Stupid. Why are we so stupid? Why are we so thick and slow not to pay attention to words and what they mean? In America, our government is common law government. There are no federales, like down in Mexico with the federales. Okay, so the states did enter into an agreement, did they? Yeah. They wrote it down, called the Constitution of the United States. What kind of an agreement was it? It is an agreement on what the law is as it applies to government. Our Constitution of the United States is an agreement of what the law is as applied to government in America. Magna Carta is an agreement of those that ratified it, an agreement of what the common law is, and how it is to apply to circumstances where they lived. The Articles of Confederation are an agreement among the militiamen of the several states as to what the law is and how they think it ought to be applied. The Northwest Ordinance is an agreement of what people think law is, the militia of the several states, and how it ought to be applied in a particular parcel of real estate called the land north and west of the Ohio River, the Northwest Territories. It's an agreement. Yeah. Our Declaration of 76 is an agreement of what the law is and what the Crown of Britain and his cronies have been doing to violate it. But it's an agreement about what they thought. Whew. Well, we entered into this agreement. The Constitution of your state is an agreement to what folk in the state that ratified that Constitution, what they believe the law as applied to government, our common law, ought to be, except Louisiana. They're not a common law jurisdiction. Poor fellows. Well, it is an agreement which they set up the general government in Washington, D.C., because it generally applies, whatever it says, within its scope of narrow jurisdiction. Very, very narrow. But what it says within the scope of that jurisdiction, as our Constitution of the United States says, it has, whatever it says applies to everybody equally, and if it doesn't apply to everybody equally, it's against the Constitution. That document even says in the preamble that it's there for the general welfare, the common defense. No playing favorites. Oh, you're a sex pervert this way and you're a sex pervert that way. You get special consideration against other Americans. No. Oh, your skin's a different color. You get special consideration against other Americans. No. Affirmative action. What did the DJ Trump administration do? They said it's over. That's not within the scope of our jurisdiction as the general government. What we do here, we don't have much authority, but what we do has to apply to everybody equally. We can't be playing favorites as a matter of law. We're stopping that. Are you getting the idea that possibly, maybe, that yours truly is bathing all this in cynic acid this morning? Yeah, cynic acid. I get tired. What's cynic mean? Well, it's a word that has to do with circles. Just get going around in circles. And that's called sin. When you see that and you get fed up with it, that's called cynicism. Nothing wrong with cynicism as long as it doesn't engulf you and hamper your ability to do something about it. A man ought to be a little cynical. Experience will give it to him. He looks at things very closely. He's like the sailors. You know, it's said of sailors has been said for thousands of years. They've seen too much to believe too much. Well, maybe you're that way too, and you were never a sailor. Maybe you just lived long enough. You're just saying, man, nothing surprises me anymore. I have found that the people that listen to this broadcast, I'm sure a lot of different age groups that listen, but I have found that a lot of people that listen are middle-aged and above, many of them baby boomers. And some of you don't even know what that is. It's a term applied, historians have applied to babies that were part of the population surge in America after World War II when all the men came home and were anxious to make babies. Boy, did they make babies. Woo! Lots of them. Our population exploded. And that's why we had such incredible prosperity, because with population comes incredible prosperity. Oh, 168. They set up an agreement to set up the general government in Washington, D.C., has general jurisdiction within its general scope. It can't play favorites to anybody, equal protection of the laws, all that. The Trump administration is moving in that direction, by the way, to reestablish its role as general government. Huh. Oh, we don't stop to consider how big a deal this is to freedom. We should. They had each a perfect right to govern themselves, each state as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and that they gave up a part of their power to the general government in Washington, D.C., and kept the rest of it in their hands. What are the powers that the states, I don't like the word gave up, delegated? The states delegated. That means they're the principal. They're still in charge. Delegated to the general government in Washington, D.C. Delegation. Remember when I prayed this morning? The prayer called the Lord's Prayer, it covers everything pertaining to government and life, everything. Short, ingenious. Thy kingdom come. Kingdom? And I try to make the point, that's basileia, the Greek text. Basileia. Old Testament, maluka. What does that mean? That means delegated spheres of authority. When you're born from above, your eyes are defogged and open, your brain is defogged, your ears are unplugged, and you can see these delegated spheres of jurisdiction. What does it mean to respect the other fella, as the Bible commands? It means you don't interfere with his jurisdiction. You don't go into his house and sleep with his wife. Not in his house. We shouldn't do it outside either. But don't go into his house and tell him how to raise his children and how to educate them. You don't do that. The government has not that authority either. Did you know? Listen. Did you know the government, the policemen, the sheriff's deputies, the school teachers, the firefighters, etc., ad infinitum, ad nauseum, have no authority to enter your house anymore, including a postman, has no authority to enter your house any more than some galoot who wants to stop and sell you magazines. No more authority. None. I'm talking about Fourth Amendment law here. Oh, if they got a warrant, that's different, but that's from a neutral, detached magistrate, particularly describing the place to be searched and the things to be seized and proving that there is probable cause of criminal evidence in your house or a criminal or a wanted criminal in there. Other than that, they have no authority to even break the plane of the door once you open it. And once they do that, that's called, if you told them not to, that's called criminal trespass. Well, there's remedies to it, but I want to say that now. Every man's house is his what? Every man's house is his castle. The poorest man may in his cottage bid all defiance to the crown. Its roof may shake. The wind may blow through it. The storm may enter. The rain may enter. But the King of England cannot enter. All of his force dare not cross the threshold of the ruined tenement. What's he saying? Saying there could be so many holes in the roof and the walls of that house that you could throw a cat through it. But the King of England has no authority any more than any other man or woman or all his force or his army or his sheriff, whoever, to come in. School teacher, firefighters. No, they get paid by the government. Unless you invite them in, now that's different. You don't want them in, tell them to get their carcasses out of there. Yep. Well, each state had a perfect right to govern themselves. Yes, yes. What are the powers they gave up of the states? What are the powers they delegated to the general government in Washington, D.C.? Number one, the power of making treaties. The states of the United States, under our common law governments, the states have no authority to make treaty with another government in our world. Bargains, agreements with other nations, heads of state. Neither do states have powers, the states of the United States have powers to make alliances with other countries. What's an alliance? That's an agreement with some other country that the two shall help each other in something they wish to get done, or in avoiding some common danger. No alliances. Neither are the individual, separate, and sovereign states of the United States, according to our Constitution of the United States, neither do they have the power to form confederations. That is, agreements among several different countries that they shall all join in some object for their common benefit. One other one. Neither do the states of the United States have authority under our Constitution to confederate with each other, to do anything. That's what our Constitution, the doctrine of our Constitution, says. None of these acts I just mentioned about alliances, agreements, confederations with foreign nations, none of those things either can be done by any one of the states separately, but must be done only, if there's any of that, it's done by the general government in Washington, D.C. Treaties, alliances with other countries. The Indian tribes, that's in our Constitution. No state has any authority to make an agreement or alliance with the Indian tribes. This is touchy stuff, friends, and we violate it. Why is that? Because when the general government in Washington, D.C. makes a treaty, it has to be calculated to benefit everybody in our country the same. Remember, it's the general government. General means applies to everybody equally. That's what that word means. I don't know why that is not said more often. General means apply to everybody equally. For instance, good translation in the day it was made, but the meaning of the word general has been lost. Jesus Christ said, do not swear generally. Do not swear generally. What does that mean? That means don't swear that you'll just do everything right. In a broad way, applies to everything. I'll never lie the rest of my life. Oh, I would never do that. Don't ever say that, because you're a liar when you say it. You will do it. You're too weak. Jesus Christ said, no. If you're going to swear, you swear to specific things that you will do, very tightly drawn. You get on the witness stand, you're swearing that you will tell the truth respecting the questions that are asked you. And by the way, in our common law tradition, if you don't want to answer a question, you just say so. I take the fifth. We're covered, folk. Our law. What a beautiful law our common law is. The right to remain silent, that doesn't exist in the rest of the world either. By the way, we're offering a class on what is our common law tradition, beginning the 10th of July this year. Sheriff Darleaf and I, Sheriff Darleaf of Berry County, Michigan. Of more than 20 years of experience as sheriff, he and I will be the presenters of this course called Comparative Law. Now, I'm excited about the course. Why? Because this is the foundation of everything that I teach about our common law tradition, and you cannot understand our common law tradition unless it is compared and contrasted with its great antagonist on every continent through the centuries, the civil law, the common law versus the civil law, the law of God versus the law of Babylon, the law of the land versus the canon civil laws of the city, the imperial law versus the law of freedom, our common law tradition. And when they're compared, then it becomes obvious. If I ask you today, I'm sure some of you would think you've heard what the common law is, and you'd say things like, well, common law is not statutory law. Okay. That's probably a true statement, but what is the common law? Well, it's not statutory law. Well, then what is it? See, we're going to talk about that, and the only way to know that, and I'm in good company when I say this, centuries of common lawyers of our common law have said we cannot understand it unless we compare and contrast it with this great antagonist, and that magnifies what it is. It's called the discipline of comparative law. And all these gurus on the internet teach them here's what the common law is, and they got all these theories and teaching them like they're truth. I'm here to tell you they aren't, most of them. I haven't heard them all, but no, if you're not a comparative lawyer, and that's an important discipline in our country, has been for this time we've been here, which has been over 400 years now. Yeah, over 400 years since the Pilgrims landed. Comparative lawyers have shown us, we've learned what our common law tradition is, starting way back there, centuries ago, with the writings of John Wycliffe, the writings of Fortescue. Trying to think of that other fellow's name just before Fortescue. It's not coming to me. I read some of his stuff back in the 1300s. 1200s. No, it was 1200s with him. Him, and then Wycliffe, and then Fortescue, and then William Blackstone, and many of the others in between, comparative lawyers. The famous commentaries on what we call the commentaries on the common law, he called them commentaries on the laws of England, are 4 volumes of comparative law, comparing and contrasting our law of the land with the law of the city, because you can't know it otherwise. You can't define it. You say, why? Well, we're going to get into that. Oh, the opportunities I have. If you'll come, I'll talk. I'm just like I'm doing here. I'll sit here and talk about it. Sheriff Darleaf will be here. And what we want to do is point out the fundamentals that make the difference between the law of the land and the law of the city. And once you have those, you get it. I hope you get it, or it gets you. That's the way to look at it. Well, alliances, confederations, the states. Another one here I was going to mention. What other powers did the states give up? What other powers did the states delegate? See, that still keeps the states in the driver's seat. And they have lots of power over the general government in Washington, D.C. Well, what else did the states delegate to that general government? Answer: the right to grant letters of marque and reprisal. That's to give a piece of paper to a man that owns a ship to go capture the pirates and enjoy a certain percentage of whatever's captured. A motivation to help us stop those who hate us. It's a military letter, but it has to do with booty. You get part of the booty. The prize, they call it. Reprisal, see? Reprisal? Well, that just means the prize. They used to call it the prize. In other words, the ship, the crew, shares in the booty. You've heard of Sir Francis Drake. What's that other fellow's name? That's what they did. They captured Spanish galleons, ships loaded with silver coming from South and Central America. Enriched England. They didn't even, they had permission, but it wasn't written down. You know, that was Elizabeth I. They make a big deal about her. All Queen Elizabeth I ever did, when foreign governments would say, stop these people in England from doing these piratical things to us, our Spanish shipping. And she said, I can't. Why not? Well, as you know, I'm just a woman. I can't stop them. Besides that, I've never been married. I have nobody who will defend me. I'm just a poor woman. And she started crying. That's the way she ruled, by the way. There's pictures of her in that movie that came out about how she was a strong woman and all that baloney. It's baloney, friends. The strength of a woman is not in power. The strength of a woman is in weakness. By the way, men, did you know that as Christian men and women, our strength is in the Bible says this, our strength is in our, what? Weakness. Paul the Apostle, I'm quoting him, he said this, where I am weak, Very emphatic, the Greek text. Exactly there, the Lord makes me strong. Find your weakness and get in it. Recognize it, confess it. And God will use your weakness to annihilate his enemies. And then his enemies will say, well, that doesn't make sense. It will confound them. Ladies, don't forget this principle. Your strength is in your weakness. God worked it that way. And men, ultimately, it's that way with you too. You may have power. You may have physical power. Men generally do in a special way, especially when they're young. But God will not use that to confound his enemies and destroy them. He'll use his people's weakness. When you read history, that's what you see. That's what you see. Why does he do that? Because he didn't want you to think that you did it. He wants you to know that he did it. He wants the glory, not you. He won't let you have it, as a matter of fact. Try to take it, he'll wipe you out. Wow. Well, here we are. Letters of marque and reprisal, that belongs to the general government in Washington, D.C. Oh, see, I got to point to Washington, D.C. East is that way for now. Also, the states do not have authority, according to our Constitution, to emit, it's a fancy word, bills of credit. That is, to issue printed promises to pay certain sums of money on the credit of the state, such as a bank issues bank notes. Now watch me. The general government in Washington, D.C. can emit bills of credit. What is a dollar bill? A dollar bill. A $5 bill, a $2 bill, a $10 bill, a $20 bill, a $100 bill. What are those? Well, they were, until recent decades, bills of credit. What is a bill of credit? It's our common law would call it a negotiable paper, negotiable piece of paper. That means that we're talking a little bit of history, because the paper money we have now, there's no promises on them. It's just trash. It was trash. It was weak before. Bills of credit are weak on the credit of the United States. That means you got to trust the United States to pay what's owed on the piece of paper. But what we have now is just a piece of paper. Has no promise on it. I remember when I was a boy, some of you remember, the piece of paper we called dollar bills said on them, that was up till 64, wasn't it? 1964, said pay to the bearer. If it was a $1 bill, it said, looked just like, pretty much like the green notes we have now. I had a picture of George on the one, they were $1, $5, all that, with all the same pictures. But then it said, pay to the bearer $20, $1 in silver. Bearer, the one that had it in his hand, he could go cash it in and get silver. Could you do that? Yeah, you take it right to the bank, say, look, I got this $1 bill. It says pay to the bearer $1 in silver by the government of the United States. And the government of the United States has given authority to certain banks to do that. So you go take it in, give them $1. Can I have 4 quarters? And the quarters were made of silver up until 1964, I believe. And they give you 4 silver quarters. And the promise on the note said that. What is a bill of credit? It's a piece of paper that is a promise recorded. What are all, we call it the law of negotiable paper. What is negotiable paper? It's paper that I can give to another person. It's a bearer instrument. The one holding it enjoys the benefit of the promise written on it. And that's the way dollar bills were, $20 bills back then. And for all of our history, why? Under the authority of this. But they had commissioned the bank to do it, which is questionable. But that's what we did. So what am I saying? Well, I'm saying that, let's talk about negotiable paper just a little bit. Negotiable paper is any piece of paper that has a recorded promise on it that'll give you money. That's kind of a general definition. There's a lot more to it than that. Well, okay, a dollar bill, it's negotiable. Whoever holds, even bills we have now, whoever has them in their pocket can use them to buy stuff. That's called a bearer. The one who bears it can use it. A bearer instrument. That's why we don't want people to steal them, because if somebody else steals it, then they hold the instrument and they can use it. Well, what about a check I write on my account at the bank? Is that a negotiable paper? Is that a promise? Yes, it's a promise. It's an undertaking. I'm promising that the bank will do. Based on the bank's promise, when I write a check, the bank's promise to me, that's a contract. They made a promise to me that if I write a check and put who to give it to, that they'll give money to that person out of the account that I've established. So that's a piece of negotiable paper, a bill of credit. What about a promissory note? What if I write a note down and say, I promise to pay $100 to so-and-so next year on the 4th of July? Is that a promissory note? Yes, it is. And it's like a check, like a dollar bill, in the sense that all of them, they're a little different in their uses, but they are recorded promises to pay somebody money. Bonds, certified checks, handwritten checks, promissory notes, all have that in common. And the only governments in our country that can issue those bills of credit, they call it, is the general government in Washington, D.C. Now, though money is commonly made of gold or silver, oh wait, watch this. State governments can't do that, but who can do that within your state? Well, bank. They're not the government, technically speaking. I mean, a lot of the states used to say you have to pay your state taxes in bills of credit issued from this bank or that bank. They could say that if they wanted. Some states, even back in the 1920s, like Oregon, said there's certain taxes, I think it was liquor taxes or something, you got to pay that in gold and silver. We're not going to let you pay it in anything else. One guy tried to pay it in US dollars, dollar bills. They said, we won't take it. Case went to the Supreme Court of the United States. The United States Supreme Court said, that's right. We can't interfere in what the sovereign state governments are doing. We can't find anything in the Constitution of the United States that says we can tell the state government what they have to accept as tax payments. So gold and silver remained. I don't know when that ended. I wish they'd do that now. That would give quite a boon to the gold and silver industry, the mining, the minting, and it would give independence to us Americans that have gold and silver. Yes, independence. Feudal subordination depends upon not having gold and silver circulating. Who was it? Sam Johnson, the man that wrote the first dictionary in the English tongue, he said, after all his studies, he said, gold and silver destroy feudal subordination. Gold and silver that they had received during those times when Queen Elizabeth I was queen and all those privateers were out here stealing Spanish gold by the ton, and by the ton. They had a more powerful navy. They were doing it, just stealing it. It went a long way in England to destroy the class distinctions and the rise of the middle class during the 17 and 1800s that made England an industrial powerhouse of private money. Now, the nobility didn't have a lock on all the money anymore. Okay? That idea came to America too. Why? Because gold and silver destroy feudal subordination, feudalism, class oppression. What did we have in America in abundance? What do we still have in America? Gold and silver. It's in the ground. There's gold in them thar hills. I heard that when I was growing up a lot. Maybe that was in the Western movies or something, but it was true. There's gold in them thar hills. And we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the gold and silver and copper we can pull out of the ground in America. We don't know. We just know we haven't scratched the surface. The geologists will tell us that. I think I've cited the USGS report from back 30, 35 years ago, not that long, but USGS, the United States Geological Survey report said, I've got it around here somewhere, back when I was in the mining business, it said that we have recovered at most 5% of the recoverable gold in the lower 48 states. At most. What they're saying is, we don't really know. We just know we haven't even started yet. Well, how could you possibly know what's under the ground, what's in the mountains? The largest gold strike in the history of the United States occurred not too many decades ago, and it's still going like gangbusters. The largest. Well, the California gold rush didn't amount to a pinch of dried owl droppings compared to the Carlin trend in Nevada. It was just a California gold rush was publicized so much. The Carlin trend, nobody even knew it happened. Nobody even knew it happened. And they're still trending. They're still digging in that trend. They know which direction it heads. Right now, about 40, 45 miles long and 5 miles wide. It's a trend that they discovered. They just keep doing it. But there's others that haven't even been cracked. Alaska is so full of gold that, of course, the government's trying to stop and control the mining. How stupid can you get? And we allow them to do that. And they're given preference in mining, have been until Trump, given preference to the Chinese. They're the ones that hold the largest, most productive gold mines in America. What is wrong? What is wrong with us that we allow such madness? How do these people get in government? This is Brent Allen Winters. CommonLawyer.com. www.commonlawyer.com. Coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long.